I would love parents to just take a breath and not panic and think it's up to me to choose the wallpaper and I can do a good job because I know my kids. And confidently hold that mindset, because I think you can feel a lot of pressure. Oh, my kids are missing out because people are having these conversations on the playground and my kids aren't going to know. They're going to be all right. I was the kid who grew up with no TV at all, or had the TV that was banned because Grange Hill was a big deal and it was banned. But I knew why, because the children in Grange Hill were rude and stood up before the end of the lesson. Now that is not particularly a Christian principle, it's my parents' preference. And that's all right, because they were in charge of setting the wallpaper. There you go.
Hello, this is the Faith in Parents podcast. I couldn't be happier to be with you. I'm here again with two of my finest friends. Last episode, we were talking about gaming with your children. So we're just going to riff straight off that and wonder, how do we screen with our children? In my generation, it was called watching TV, but I don't think people call it that anymore. So it's sort of watching things on a screen that are made for your entertainment. That's what we're talking about. Amy, how do you describe it?
I think I still call it watching telly, Ed, but yeah, it might age me. But there we are. But it's fun. We've got the gang together. It's a podcast crossover. There's you and me, and there's Jam. Woohoo, Jam! Yeah. Welcome to the Grown Up podcast. I love it when I get to come and hang out on the kids podcast. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Yeah, it's all good. I'm excited.
And have you got a fun fact for us about telly?
Oh no, I don't. I wish I did. Now you should have asked me that sooner. All I do know is, here's the fun fact. It's not so much a fact, it's a realization that the way our kids watch TV is nothing like the way we watched TV. So
Explain.
I am turning 50. I can still remember when Channel 4 started. There were 3 channels and then there were 4. Okay? And just the way, so the stuff that we grew up with is just way, way wildly different. And even, parents who are younger than me, which is many, particularly most listening to this podcast, it's still just super different. And I don't think we fully got our heads around how different it is. Because now you can watch anything, anytime. In the past, you had to watch it when it was on. And one of the reasons I'm told, here's a fun fact, I was told one of the reasons why theme tunes were so long in the old days, because like you go back to your old TV shows from the 80s.
Yes.
You start it and you think, oh my goodness, I cannot believe how long the theme tune is. And it's because basically half the family were in the kitchen or in the conservatory or upstairs. And you've got about 75 seconds to get in.
Oh, you've got to make the cup of tea.
Yeah. Tea on, thing, blah, blah, blah. Lovejoy starting. Here we go. Sit down. Ready. And that's why the theme tune is so long. It's calling you, like church bells, calling you to the sofa so that you can watch it together. Because if you miss it, it's never going to be on again. And if it is, you won't catch it. There you go. That's more fun facts than you were hoping for.
I think, Jan, we're going to edit out the section where you say I've not got a fun fact, because sure as eggs is eggs, yeah. Jam has a fun fact.
There we go.
I do want to say that my life is spent meeting people who love the Faith in Parents podcast and then quickly say, but where's Amy? Or people who love the Faith in Kids for Kids podcast and quickly say, where's Jam? I spend my life feeling like
you are not enough.
I'm the unappealing half of 2 podcasts. And if only Jam and Amy were in the room, everyone would always be happier. So can I say to all our listeners, I've got Amy and Jam here, and they're the best thing about our podcasts.
I can't believe that's true. You are the commonality. You are the secret sauce, Ed. Let's be honest.
Yes, I think I'm the background noise. It's absolutely great to be here. The thing we're going to try and work out then is what do we do with screens? Now, we're going to try to tackle the really difficult stuff right at the end, but mainly we're just here for how do we watch things together as a family? How do we get the best out of our boxes? And how do we help our children to enjoy what is beautiful, wonderful, and to talk through what is difficult, painful, and makes you cry? So that's what we're all about. Amy, just tell us, when I ask you for something your family used to enjoy watching together on a screen, where would you go first?
When my kids were all very small, my absolute favourite thing, because there was always a job that you could be getting on with, but when Show Me came on on CBeebies, I would drop everything and sit down, sometimes with a notebook, because I just thought it was the best way. It was, from me as a kids worker and like somebody who'd enjoyed teaching the Bible to children, the way they just like picked up the stuff around them and like used it to tell a story. And we were off having all these adventures. I just thought I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I think, yeah, I loved it with my children. And I think I've done both. So I've done everything. I've had every response to TV programmes. As a child, we were the family that suddenly decided we were getting rid of television at the top end of my primary school years, which just meant instead of watching lots of telly, we read lots of books. And then we got the telly back again and we watched lots of really good films. My kids have watched TV and then I've shouted things at them, which, you know, when you're telling a 4-year-old, you're not watching this, it's Buddhist nonsense, and turn it off. And then when you're making tea in the other room and you shout through, what are you watching? And your 4-year-old replies, I'm watching Buddhist nonsense again. You realise that, you know, there's a lot that happens around what your kids are doing on TV. There's a lot of conversations that can be had. I've had some good ones and I've had some terrible ones. And that's why we're having a podcast on it, Ed.
Just briefly, Amy, can you give us the margin note on Buddhist nonsense, please?
Okay, so the margin note. Now, I don't want everybody to panic. So if your children have enjoyed this programme, it's okay. I just didn't. So there was a programme called Way Below, and there was a lot of sort of yoga moves and listening to chimes and things like that.
I remember that.
And I just didn't like it. So I turned it off and said, we're not watching this. And my children looked at me a bit surprised and said, why? And I said, because it's Buddhist nonsense. And didn't know how to explain it much more than that. But they were clear. There are some things that we don't watch because Mum doesn't want us to. And there are some things that Mum really loves watching. And as they've got older, we've obviously had more conversations about the why. But I think the thing that I'm really clear on is my husband and I, as the parents in the house, wanted to be really clear. It's up to us. We set the tone in our home. We make the decisions. We want what is good for you. And I like to think of it like we choose the wallpaper that we put up. And in your family, you choose the wallpaper that you put up. And sometimes you might look back and think, well, that was a weird choice and that wallpaper was a bit bonkers and we might not have done that again. But it's up to you, and you're making the choice for your family to say, we want this to be the good backdrop to our family life. There we go, Ed. Have any nice wallpaper in your world?
Let's hear about Jam's wallpaper. Jam, growing up, your children, tell me.
So yeah,
what were the wins?
My kids are 15 and 17 now. So back in the day, but the thing is with CBeebies particularly, it's just all still there, I think, and you can find it, is the huge, brilliant show for me is Charlie and Lola. So I got 2 girls, so I suspect it's slightly less appealing to boys, although I would say Charlie and Lola is one of the best male role models on all television.
So patient.
A brilliant big brother. He's a proper boy who likes playing football with his friend Marv, I think. And Lola, he's so patient with his little sister, who's bonkers and brilliant and imaginative. It definitely affected the speech patterns of my oldest daughter. And we've actually got a limited edition print of one of the things on our kitchen wall. So that is our real happy place. But just going back to what Amy was saying about turning stuff off and saying it's Buddhist nonsense, I think you feel comfortable about giving a reason. It's Buddhist nonsense. I am protecting you. So I don't think it needs to be, oh, Mum's a bit crazy and she doesn't like us watching this or that. Because that's just sort of like, oh, Dad used to shout at the TV because he didn't like Greg Wallace or whatever. And that's sort of a different thing from, I'm protecting you from something that is harmful. Here's a great quote from Sir David Frost. Back in the day, he said, "Television is an invention that permits you to be entertained in your living room by people you wouldn't have in your home." And it's just worth bearing in mind that the TV is just a gateway to a whole load of stuff. And again, we can go out of the house and meet people who are great, and we can go out and meet people who are harmful. We can go out and meet people who look great but are actually probably a negative influence, and people who may look rather unpromising but are actually brilliant. TV is a bit of that, really. And so I think we just need to be careful. And when we're preventing people from watching stuff, we need to explain, even if they don't fully understand or they want to, if they want to watch something, we need to explain why it's not good to watch it, suggest something else. And then ultimately, if they're not convinced, well, at that point, it's like, oh, okay, you're still not watching it. Okay. So you can either watch this other show or not. It's up to you, really. So, but that's kind of says more about me than anything else, probably.
So one of the things I really love about Jam is whenever you talk to Jam, you're entirely clear that he is confidently setting the tone for his home. And I think that often as parents, and I think I'm going to say as mums in particular, we can be really worried and we can feel really guilty. And like we're already starting to panic of, oh no, what things have I allowed my children to watch that they shouldn't be watching? Da, da, da. And like, it's great to know what they're watching, and it's great to try and think about what they're watching. It's great to watch stuff with your kids. And I also think I just love parents to just feel a little bit more confident that you can set the tone and you can not like stuff and you can say no to stuff, because two things: you're the parent, you get to choose. You're the parent, you know your child. So I think one of my children loves watching like the rescue programs, like he's a bit older now, so Saving Lives at Sea and all of those kind of things. And there was one about rescuing people in Snowdon and things, and like, 'cause it's adventure and it's outdoors, and the story narrative is someone gets rescued and helped at the end, so it's generally positive. We'd finished watching those, so off he went to find another one and chose Highland Cops or something, because he's hoping for the same kind of thing. Anyway, what happens is we obviously take a dive in beautiful scenery to the drug dealing granny and, the speeding this and that. And he's like watching show after show, because the way we've changed telly, watch telly has changed. So you like binge watch 4 episodes rather than wait till next week for the next episode.
Yeah.
So I was saying to him, can you see how this has now made you believe that that's what life out there is like? That there's a terror around every corner, that there's, even in the most beautiful setting in the world, there's an evil granny pushing cocaine. So can you see how you're now getting stressed and you've got this false view of the world? So we need to have a little bit of a chat about that, and we need to try and say TV is not the lens through which we view everything. Ed, have you had any of these experiences with your kids?
I think all of my children are different. So it's really helpful, Amy, you've highlighted that. So I can say that we almost have a 0% success rate of family film nights. So I feel a bit jealous of families who say, like, growing up, every Friday night, popcorn out, let's watch a film. We have essentially a 0% of films in the world that will satisfy our 3. We have one in particular who can't really concentrate the whole way through a film. So I found that a bit sad, but I've also just dealt with it. We've got another one. Paddington has become in our family about the only film we would all go together to the cinema for. So it's become a big thing. And I was disproportionately cross with my son, age 15, who went to see a Paddington with his mates without us, because I missed out on the family experience. But I remember, for instance, if we remember to the Nicole Kidman character at the beginning of Paddington 1, she does an amazing job of being utterly terrifying and living in the Natural History Museum. And I had a weeping son on my lap for the end of that film. And I do remember thinking, well, this isn't quite the family experience I was hoping for. So I think we can't predict it, but we have tried to search for programs that we could at least manage to all get round. For us, it was Despicable Me as well. But at least one of my children couldn't pronounce it, so it's called Speckledy Me. So in our house, we call it Speckledy Me. I just want to quickly say, if I had one parenting regret, it would be, I wish I'd got a notebook and written in it every time one of my children mispronounced a word, because the list is unbelievably long and hysterically funny. So if you've just given birth to your first child, could my top tip be show them Jesus? And could my second top tip be get a notebook and put it next to your pants and get it out often?
Can I add to your thing about there's Amy first, and then I'll add to your thing about being scared? Go on.
I was just going to say, my son last night made tea, and then I said, "Oh, we could do with tide. Oh, the kitchen's looking a bit of a mess," and he said, "I'll wipe the dashboard," meaning meaning the cooker area. I thought it was great.
Dashboard's good. I like that. I might start calling it that, actually.
The kitchen dashboard.
Yeah, no, it's great. In terms of being scared, though, I think the way you said that, I just suddenly thought, I think sometimes we think we have to protect our children from being scared. And I don't think we do. So one of my kids used to scare really easily. And so, that always just made us a bit careful. But I think this idea that they should never have a negative experience, I think is a bit of an issue. So we're not helicoptering, we're not coating them in cotton wool. We're not showing them stuff that's gratuitously inappropriate, but occasionally if something suddenly is surprising. So I agree, the lady in Paddington is proper nasty. And I think particularly maybe girls, because my girls reacted in a way that she's beautiful, therefore she's probably a good character. It's like, no, not the case. So I think a healthy bit of suddenly being scared by something, you haven't failed as a parent, and it may be even that you were aware that it was coming and you were interested to see what the reaction would be. And half the time you're going to be wrong, actually. And sometimes they're not shocked by something they probably should have been shocked by. And so I think it's a question of just watching them watching as well as watching it yourself. And I think just to move it on a bit from that as well, I don't think it's different maybe, but so I can remember when A Grand Day Out was on television for the first time. It was on Channel 4. I watched it and I taped it. And I knew that when the next one came on, I think it was The Wrong Trousers. I thought this is going to be brilliant. I videoed it and I made my parents watch it. And I was like a teenager at this point. Even then, it still mattered to me that they enjoyed it and that they liked it. And so I think your kids do want to enjoy stuff that you enjoy for the same reason. And so there are things that you might have to slightly hold your nose and watch with them. But I think you don't want to do too much of that. You want to find stuff that you actually like. So Charlie and Lola, I admire as a program as well as enjoyed. Peppa Pig, awful, total garbage. And I would say so. And my kids didn't watch it much anyway. And when they did, I just said, "Oh, this is terrible. And you shouldn't like this. This is junk, total junk." So I would actually tease them a bit for watching it. But I think just like your own reaction to a TV show does actually matter to them more than you might think, especially when they're younger. When they're a teenager, it's probably a bit different. But I do think there's something about committing to the thing. And when your parent loves the thing that you love for the same reason that you love it, rather than just that kind of, oh, there are jokes that only parents get. I think, so, in the glory days, Pixar, like Toy Story 2, which is basically immaculate as a movie. It's just 100% movie perfection. You can all enjoy that and you're enjoying the same thing. So yeah, I think finding stuff that you can enjoy together where you're not even pretending to enjoy it. But I'm aware that is a vanishingly small list, isn't it?
Okay, Ed. So I want you to imagine that you could take the sort of you could capture the essence of Jam's confidence in I can say something is good, I can say something is terrible, I can watch stuff with my kids, I can tell my kids not to watch it. And I want you to apply that confidence. Imagine you're walking into the playground today and you're now facing the K-pop demon hunters, we're going to say it again, world. of a conversation about your child wants to watch this and you're thinking, oh my goodness, what do you think you should do?
I think this is a beautiful conversation for us to have. As we prepared for this podcast, Amy, you told me a story about you remember in church being told that Star Wars was inappropriate for Christian homes.
It was New Age.
That's fair, actually.
New Age.
Yeah.
If you want to look up the worldview called dualism, it is there and Star Wars is the example of that worldview. I remember being in church, being told that Harry Potter was inappropriate for Christian homes. And so there is probably a program for every generation that emerges, and just before it becomes absolutely massive, Christians decide this is inappropriate to watch at home.
Can I also say, Ed, this is not new. I can totally imagine that in the 1st century, in new churches in Corinth, mums were talking to other mums about being worried about their child going over to that person's house because they had a Diana goddess statue and like what effect that could have, and whether that meant that having, I don't know, a spoon on the windowsill could mean the same sort of thing. We've always had this issue.
So I would love, therefore, having not seen K-pop Demon Hunters, to take it away from one program and just say, I think there's a couple of just principles that allows all just to take a breath. Principle 1 is it is good for a parent to take a look at it first on their own. So it is good just to work out, what is it about this? Because I'm hearing most Christians tell me that they've really enjoyed watching K-pop Demon Hunters, and it's great, really good, and there's a song in it called something like Golden that everyone thinks is the best song ever. So to take a look at it yourself and make a decision, brilliant. And secondly, to watch it with your children, because I have been thinking that the best spiritual conversations I have had with my children after watching something is where something questionable is happening. For instance, Jam's given the example of being scared. As I held my little son in tears through Nicole Kidman doing a brilliant job, I was whispering in his ear, I'm here, you are safe, it's going to be fine. Because that's what a parent does. And there is a more grown-up question, which is God still Lord? Is Jesus Christ in charge? Are we safe with him? Can we make better decisions? So an example was, we watched Encanto as a family. It's probably Disney. It's about something slightly strange happening in Mexico, where they sort of grow a house out of the ground, and someone called Bruno lives in a slightly creepy way behind the walls. But there's a scene in there about the afterlife, and that film explores huge issues about what is beautiful and where does value come from, and am I a good person? So that film is fairly bizarre, and it's got some fairly odd ideas in it, but some brilliant conversations happened in our house afterwards about what makes you valuable, and what do we believe happens after death, and what does this film believe happens after death. So a good conversation occasionally. I want to be really clear, we don't have big deep conversations after everything we watch at all. But as I've just tried to process, when have we had good conversations? They're almost always after something pretty peculiar and pretty marginal has been watched.
Can I just add that one of the latest podcasts I recorded in a series called Popcorn Parenting with my friend Nate Morgan-Locke, we did talk about Encanto. Those podcasts are no longer available, but they are now all on YouTube. So if you go to the Reformed Mythologist YouTube channel, which I highly recommend you do anyway, because Nate is brilliant.
In the show notes,
we have a chat about the movie Encanto, plus at least a dozen others, maybe, I can't remember how we did in the end, maybe 15 or 20. So we talk about quite a lot of movies, but we stopped doing that. So I think one of the last ones we did was Lightyear, maybe, or something like that, which was a disaster. And yeah, Seeing Red, I think maybe we did as well, various ones like that. So Popcorn Parenting. And Ed is gesturing at me in a way that implies there's something obvious that I should say, but maybe you're gesturing at Amy.
It feels like, Jam, you're about to tell us something about Encanto, or are you not?
I've honestly forgotten it, but there is some kind of woo in it, isn't there? So again, but just going back to the conversation about, so this is presenting a worldview. Is that actually what the Bible teaches? How is it different? How is it the same? But I 100% agree. You don't need to do that when you've just watched Inside the Factory about how they make cans of baked beans. Okay, you don't need to do that. That's fine.
I just also want to reassure people listening that it is totally okay. God has given us television so that we can make the dinner. We can thank him for his kindness, and we can say, "What, you're watching this because I just need 5 minutes." It's one of God's good gifts, but with all good gifts, we have to learn how to wield it well.
But the algorithm does not have their or your best interests at heart, and therefore you do need to think ahead of time. So if there's a bingeable series, and remember when the word binge was always negative. So if there's a bingeable series and you know that, that's just fine for them to watch Inside the Factory or Tudor Monastery Farm or whatever it was. We used to like those. Tudor Monastery Farm, Edwardian Farm, all about kind of recreating stuff in the past and living like you are in history and that kind of stuff. So you can find those things. But this is the awful thing is you do actually have to have a think about it and have kind of a list, because if you think that they might just find something brilliant and suitable, then the algorithm isn't your friend, really. The default setting is rarely in your best interests.
Amy, you were talking earlier about the wallpaper of your home. Knowing that all programs you'll mention will be 10 years out of date, could you give us the generic kinds of programs that you've just found to be your friend?
I can give you the list, but I also want to say every family has their own list, and you can be confident to find the things that you love, and you'll find some surprises. So we loved Katie Morag. I've got a son who's very passionate about the outdoors. So there were these programs called Roaming in the Wild. There was all the Bear Grylls stuff. Anything with Steve Backshaw in, we loved. We used to love Strictly. We've had some very good conversations about watching Strictly, about sort of saying, oh, what's going on here and what do we think? And in some ways, we had a great conversation when Granny announced that she wasn't going to watch it anymore. And we all had to have a bit of a wider family conversation about whether we're engaging with the world or whether we're trying to understand. And it gives you a helpful way to talk about how do we respond to people who perhaps live and think differently. So I just think there's been loads of stuff. Talking to other friends, what are you enjoying watching, asking for their recommendations. And I think knowing your kids. So a lot of the stuff that Jam has said, like, wouldn't appeal. My children would rather stick pins in their eyes than watch something about Tudor farming. But, that's okay. Jam's kids would probably rather stick pins in their eyes than watch something about Munros in Scotland. So it's all right.
Or lighthouses.
Yeah. So, just being confidently yourself, but enjoying what is good. And I think for us that have had anxious children and at the end of the day, needing to calm down and believe that the world is a good place and having kids that can doom spiral to think everything in the world is terrible and against them means that changes the kind of things that I'm looking for. So at a point when we were in a crisis as a family, we watched a lot of makeover shows because, literally, we all know before this starts that by the end, something's going to improve and it's only going to take 30 minutes.
Sort Your Life Out. Big hit with my daughters and my wife, yeah.
All that kind of thing. I just think I would love parents to just take a breath and not panic and think it's up to me to choose the wallpaper and I can do a good job because I know my kids. And I just, you're going to be okay. And confidently hold that mindset. Because I think you can feel a lot of pressure. Oh, my kids are missing out because people are having these conversations on the playground and my kids aren't going to know. They're going to be all right. I was the kid who grew up with no TV at all or had the TV that was banned because Grange Hill was a big deal and it was banned because, but I knew why. Because the children in Grange Hill were rude and stood up before the end of the lesson. Now, that is not particularly a Christian principle. It's my parents' preference, and that's all right, because they were in charge of setting the wallpaper. There you go.
My mum loved Grange Hill, and she would drive home slightly faster so that we wouldn't miss the beginning, because she didn't want to miss the beginning. So she thought it was great. Even the, Tucker and Pogo Patterson and all those people from many, many years ago. So, again, it's all different, isn't it?
It is.
I feel blessed to have a child who is enjoying watching films, and he's a teenager. So it means that I find it easy now to be picking things that I want him to see, that we get to talk about afterwards and just explore what's this filmmaker doing. I also know that I have to lean harder, and I find it really hard to enjoy watching, for instance, YouTube Shorts. YouTube Shorts, I'm struggling to see the benefit of them. But every now and then we have to make something, cook something, because the YouTube short has claimed these 4 ingredients will make a delicious meal. My experience is they never do, and it never comes out as well as it does on the video. But to lean into the programs we don't enjoy, if only to understand what is our child watching and why, and how can we enjoy it with them. Amy, help us. How do you have conversations? Do you have to have conversations? Do you remember conversations happening with your children?
Yeah, and the fact that I remember them shows you that they were sort of standout moments, and they were big emotions, or they were a big issue that came up because of something we were watching. I've already said it, but generally the TV is just part of the background noise. It's part of the wallpaper. But there are moments of things that stand out and push you to have a conversation about something, either because there's something that you don't like and you need to explain why, or because your kid wants to watch something and you want to say no, or an unexpected moment that comes up. So we loved Peter Rabbit, and we went to see it at the cinema as a family. And so when the second one came out, we were all so excited, and there's nothing to worry about here because we love this programme. Now, I've mentioned before on the podcast that my kids are adopted, and so there's a bit in the middle of Peter Rabbit 2 that was talks about being him discovering that he's the bad seed, and that he's going to be kicked out, and there's a lot of problems around where does this rabbit belong, and is he just bad because he's come from bad, and all this. So for one of my kids, as in that moment of sitting in the cinema, there was this, oh no, I know what's happening. And I look down and he is frozen in fear. And it's so we've gone out for this lovely experience. We don't expect this to be happening. And like, he still, as a teenager now, remembers feeling sick and frightened and awful. But it helped us have the conversation about why. Now, I wouldn't have chosen it, and I wouldn't have wanted that. But that moment is still something that we talked about it the other week. He said, do you remember, like, oh, I still can't watch that film because of what it made me think and feel. But he was then able to process that with us. So that is part of good conversations that can be possible through something being hard. But equally, have we had good conversations about, we've watched an amazing nature documentary, and then at the end of it, we've all wanted to go, wow, God did that. But the nature documentary doesn't say that. So then we say it. So I think we can all have good conversations. There will be standout moments when you have them, and there will be other moments when it's just that you're putting the TV on because you're making the dinner. Don't worry about it.
We often make jokes about nature documentaries like that because I love watching them, and the big, really expensive BBC ones. We sometimes just go, oh yeah, that just happened though, didn't it? It just happened. That's just science there, So we make sarcastic comments at it, but we still enjoy it. I mean, and then we get sort of beaten over the head about climate change. But yeah, those are good. The other thing, one thing I was going to say is Horrible Histories. Really funny. Be aware.
Hilarious.
Be aware that Horrible Histories always demonstrate religion as being stupid. Religion is always seen as irrational, backward, and completely unjustifiable in any normal thinking person. It's really annoying. in an otherwise really funny series. Particularly the early series are really, really good. But yeah, in general, it's just kind of really annoying that they just think anyone who actually went to church and believed any of it had some ridiculous view. So that's kind of annoying. But Horrible Histories is really funny. And there are lots of other things. I was just looking at the CBBS at the moment, CBBC, like Dengineers. My kids really like that. And there's again, but just have a look, try stuff. Danger Mouse is still running. That's funny. It's actually better than the original. I went back to the original and just thought, oh, this isn't actually as good as the later version. So sometimes things are better now.
Ed, can I ask you? So we've talked about the good that screens can do. We've talked about the conversations that we can have, but there will be parents who are just like, I hate screens, and how do I get my child off them? And I think there's a lot of people who there's the shared viewing that allows you to have conversations because we're all watching the same thing, and there's that I'm off with my headphones on and I'm plugged into a world of watching very short clips of lots of different things. Help us out.
The first thing is, in my home at the moment, we're hiding remote controls because I am tired of constantly switching things off and being cross. I led a group in a local school discussing screen time, and I was extremely struck that as we just went around a table of about 8 people, all 7 of them were absolutely delightful people. We loved having a chat over a coffee first. Then when I started the evening with, how is screen time going in your family? They each had a story of real sadness, like, we can't go on holiday and have fun anymore because, or one of my children walks around the house on their screen, looking at it as they go up and down stairs as they eat. So everyone had a story of real sadness, and maybe unsurprisingly, they'd come to this evening to talk about it because they'd run out of solutions. So as much as I want to make light of it and just say something simple like, you're the parent, why don't you switch it off? I think I have definitely learnt that more arguments are happening in homes about this issue than probably anything else. And it's the question we get asked the most. So that, first of all, means it's not easily fixed, and I don't have 3 sentences to fix it for us. I've changed my view about smartphones. So if you like, 2 of my children got given a smartphone when they turned 11 and went to high school. I don't think I'm going to do that for my 3rd, because my observation would be that once your child has a smartphone, it's very difficult to decide on what screen time is appropriate or even know what they're watching. And there are ways of doing it, and there are software you could use, and there are many things. It's still very difficult. So I'm increasingly of the view that before the age of about 14, it would be great if they were able to communicate with me, tell me where they were and know they were safe. I would rather they didn't have access to everything the internet can offer. So a few thoughts are, you are the parent. There is going to be rules in your family. For instance, no one gets to have a phone at the table, or no one, when we sit down to watch a family film, could all the screens be put away?
No double screening.
No double screening, no screens in your bedroom. There are some things that, as a parent, you have the right to say, while you live in my house, this is how it's going to be. And the argument might be huge at the beginning, but if you hold the line, the argument gets smaller. I also want to say the arguments do carry on, but every generation is having arguments about something. My dad grew up in the war. He remembers hiding from bombs, and he knows the sound of a V2 bomb heading towards his house. So for him growing up, screens weren't such a problem, but they did have another problem, and his parents wished it wasn't around. So it is very normal for parents of every generation to say, I wish this wasn't around. I don't know how to fix it. And it's okay. We live in a broken world. The Lord still has it.
There will be battles. So for heaven's sake, fight over the right stuff. So there is no argument-free form of parenting. The idea that your child will just do what you say without question every single time is bonkers. And I homeschooled my kids and they're fab and we get on well. That's not the case. So, you know, I've had it pretty easy. But in general, there is no non-conflict version of it. So pick your hill to die on. Pick some decent hills. So you might as well do it on screen time. And when they get their first phone, and there will be a certain amount of pushback. In fact, there will be tons of pushback.
And culturally, the conversation has shifted. So I remember like saying no to my kids at primary school having phones and being the worst parent in the world because everybody's got one and my child was missing out on the sort of social interaction. Now, that's not the more generally held view now.
Are you saying you were visionary, Amy? That's what I'm hearing.
No, I think I was probably just more terrified. I don't think I was visionary. I think I was probably just more nervous.
Rightly.
I was more of the pull the shutters down and keep the world out for longer. Naturally, which meant that I didn't want them to have these things because they're just kids. And I wanted them to be kids for longer. And I just think there's a bit more of a wider... It's easier to perhaps hold that now. But I also think if you made decisions and you're already thinking, oh, well, the ship has sailed, I'm now a failure because they've got phones in their bedroom and they're doing these things, you get to say, sorry guys, I want what's good for you, I want to change. And maybe it is too harsh to just whip things away, but you can think of like, well, how would you change anything else? We've all got massively overweight and we want to get thinner. We're going to start changing our habits to do something better. And I'm going to say no to this. But therefore, what am I saying yes to? So it's not just all the doom. And I think tone really matters in how you have the conversation. So one of the conversations that we've been having a lot, and I think this is also common in lots of houses, is about turning lights off. So Dad, it is Dad in our house, is very passionate about not wasting electricity. Doesn't understand why the rest of the family don't share his passion. And it tends to come out as grumpy shouting that you left this on again, and we all feel like failures. I was just trying to say, please share with us the vision for better. We'd all be motivated to turn a light off if we wanted to save a polar bear. So we're going to turn the light off because we love polar bears more than just because we don't want Dad to shout. Ed, where are you at?
I would like to finish this episode by asking each of us if you were going to dig up one film or TV programme for years gone by to settle in with your children and say, this could blow your mind. Could you each give me a recommendation? I'm going to start. For children over the age of 8 or 9, I found The Goonies to be a brilliant film. It does have some frightening villains, but my goodness, what a ride. So that was the film that blew their socks off with like, what is this, Dad? And it's got a beautiful happy ending and it makes me cry. Okay, Jam, what should we dust off, blow down and sit our kids down and say, this is going to blow your socks off?
This is a very specific one, but I'm just going to go with it anyway, because I remember finding it absolutely enchanting as a kid and I made my kids watch it. And that is Castle in the Sky, which is a Studio Ghibli film. And it's mind-blowing. And there are a lot of good films in that stable. I can't remember what some of the later ones are called. But there are other ones like, what are they called? Sorry, I'm just going to go for them later. Stuff like Howl's Moving Castle, Prince Mononoke, Spirited Away, those sorts of things. But there's an early one called Castles in the Sky, and it was just really, really cool. And so that was a good one. And then more recently, getting them to watch Indiana Jones. But I tell you what's a great one that's like an introduction to Indiana Jones is National Treasure with Nick Cage. That was a big hit. National Treasure.
Firm recommend.
Hard recommend.
Amy, what have you got for us?
Well, I love this time of year. We generally watch Harry Potter again, start to finish, do a big marathon, get good snacks. We love it. I also, from the past, From the past, I'm a bit worried that I'm gonna get excommunicated for this one. I loved as a teenager going to see Back to the Future movies when they came out of the cinema. And I mean, there's a few moments that you might have to have some conversations, but the Back to the
Slightly
Future
creepy
movies
moments.
we
Yeah.
absolutely loved. Yeah, and my sisters and I still quote bits from the film to one another in real life. So they are. Back to the Future is my recommendation.
It's only going back to those movies as an adult, having not seen them for ages. You just go, Michael J. Fox's capacity to act surprised is incredible. He spends the whole movie, Doc! Ow! Whoa! Ow! Doc! It's just incredible. So, yeah, Back to the Future was a recent watch for us as a family, and they survived. The third one is also really good. The second one's okay. Third one's terrific. First one's a classic. And The Princess Bride, obviously, Ed.
Stop. I would love to mention that I'm excited about the sequel of Spinal Tap coming out, but that's not for this podcast. Amy, instead, could you just take a breath and calmly pray for us?
Absolutely. Heavenly Father, thank you that you are our good and perfect Heavenly Father. Thank you that you want good things for us. And Father, I pray for us as parents, as we struggle with being the imperfect parents that we are, that we would have the confidence that you have given us the task to do, to raise the children you have given us, and you have not made any mistakes in the way that you've put our families together. I pray that that would give us huge confidence that we can set the tone in our family, we can choose the wallpaper, and that we would want to do a good job of helping our children see what is good and have good conversations that help them know you more and understand you better. I pray that for the parents listening, that you would free us from guilt, that we would know that we don't need to feel guilty because we have Jesus, and that we would want to see more of him in everyday life. Help us in the battles with screens to get it right. And to point to you when we fail. All of this we ask for Jesus' sake. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Jam, thank you very much for being on the podcast again. You get everywhere. Tell me what you're working on at the moment.
I do have another podcast called The Stand-Up Theologian, and that's about stuff that I find interesting that's to do with culture and comedy and television and lots of different things like that. So if you want to go and listen to The Stand-Up Theologian, that would be fun. I have an episode where I talk about the life of Brian, for example, with Glenn Scrivener. So that's fun. I'm also touring the UK with a show called God, the Bible and Everything in 60 minutes. Go to jamescarey.co.uk and you'll find out where I am, and you could get in touch and make it happen, and I could come to your church. How about that?
Thank you, Jam. It's been lovely having you come to our church and this podcast. Amy, thank you. Enjoy Liverpool. It's been a pleasure being with you again. Say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.